In 2020, the NBA resumed its season inside a hermetically sealed campus at Walt Disney World. To simulate a crowd for the television broadcast, the league surrounded the isolated hardwood with massive digital screens projecting virtual fans. Inside this heavily controlled environment, the league sanctioned specific forms of protest. They painted Black Lives Matter directly onto the official playing surface. Players swapped the names on their jerseys for approved social justice messages. Billion-dollar corporate sponsors readily embraced and broadcast this highly visible messaging. But outside the Disney gates, the reality was starkly different. Massive protests against police brutality were filling major city streets across the country, met by tear gas and riot lines. Within the bubble, the messaging was frictionless and corporate-approved. Outside, it was chaotic. If players wanted the league to move past slogans, they needed a mechanism to force it. To find a successful model for that pressure, the NBA looked to a sister league, who did the heavy lifting of protest for years. Starting in 2017, WNBA players initiated a new form of protest. Entire teams walked off the court and stayed in the locker room during the national anthem. By leaving the floor, these athletes deliberately removed themselves from the broadcast product. They practiced coordinated labor resistance, setting a clear boundary between their bodies and the entertainment schedule. The WNBA moved from asking for visibility to practicing resistance. By 2020, the NBA found itself using those same tactics when symbolism reached its limit. On August 23, 2020, police in Kenosha, Wisconsin, shot an unarmed black man 7 times in the back, sparking intense community outrage. 3 days later, the Milwaukee Bucks were scheduled to play the Orlando Magic. Instead of taking the floor for tip-off, the players stayed in their locker room and refused to play the game. This is a Wildcat strike. Unlike a standard union strike where leadership plans a legal, scheduled work stoppage after contract negotiations fail, a Wildcat strike is a sudden, unsanctioned walkout by the workers themselves. By withholding their labor without warning, the Bucks instantly froze a multi-billion-dollar broadcast. Game 5 was canceled, and the advertising revenue tied to that broadcast halted. In this moment, celebrity platforms were secondary. The real power was the players' absolute control over the league's broadcast revenue. The stoppage was highly contagious. Within hours, players across the WNBA, Major League Baseball, and Major League Soccer walked out of their own scheduled games. This coordinated freeze placed direct pressure on team owners, a concentrated group of billionaires wielding enormous political and financial capital. The striking players refused to restart the playoffs until those owners agreed to negotiate. They demanded actionable investments in their local communities, turning the owners' desire for television revenue into a bargaining chip for reform. At the same time, WNBA players took direct political aim at ownership. Players on the Atlanta Dream wore shirts explicitly endorsing the opponent of their own team's co-owner, Kelly Loeffler, in a highly contested U.S. Senate race. The athletes operated as a disciplined labor force. They weaponized their own absence to force capital to act. The strike yielded concrete policy shifts. To save the 2020 playoffs, team owners agreed to convert 23 massive NBA arenas into public voting centers. These facilities offered high-capacity, socially distanced polling locations in the middle of a pandemic, providing secure ballot access in densely populated urban centers to directly combat voter suppression. The WNBA's apparel protest proved mathematically effective. Their endorsement generated a fundraising spike for Reverend Raphael Warnock, contributing to his victory and flipping a Georgia Senate seat. The players had successfully translated their on-court leverage into quantifiable votes at the ballot box. The institutional changes persist today. The league established a social justice coalition that actively lobbies federal and state governments for voting rights and criminal justice reform. Internally, the NBA accelerated minority leadership hiring. Unlike leagues that require teams merely to interview minority candidates, the NBA placed a record number of coaches of color directly into leadership positions. The league also established strict financial penalties for players who post biased or anti-gay comments. By walking away from the court in August 2020, players demonstrated how organized labor converts an entertainment product into a direct political instrument.